Om. 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 Om Sahana Vavatu Sahano Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinav Aditamastu Mavidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. May the Divine Being look over us lovingly as a mother and father. May the Divine Being support and nourish us as a mother and father. May we have the strength and skill to study together the art of spirituality. May no misunderstandings arise amongst us. Om, peace, peace, peace be unto us and to all beloved beings everywhere. Well, good morning and namaste, everyone. So good to see you all here. It's always lovely to see you. As you know, last week we finished Swami Prabhavananda's talk on yoga, and we're now going on quite logically to his talk on mind and its control. We're studying Swami Prabhavananda's collection of talks, those given from 1938 to 1976, as collected by his disciple Nalini, Edith Tipple, and edited by her when the same talk had been given many times. She found the best sections of each of those iterations of the talk and collected them together. So this is a talk that the Swami gave many times called Mind and Its Control. But before we go on, based on the talk on yoga and what we've been studying, is there any question or concern or comment about what's meant by mind? What do we mean by mind? Any questions or comments about it? All right, fine. The Swami will, of course, give us his definition. Mind and its control. Most people are driven like leaves before the wind. They live, think, and act subject to the moods and impulses of their own minds. But what is the true nature of the mind? What is the subconscious mind? And why do we have to control it? These are not academic problems, but they are vital questions for every spiritual aspirant. When beginning to practice spiritual disciplines, the aspirant realizes the need for control of the mind, both conscious and subconscious. Now, by conscious and subconscious, the Swami means our waking awareness. That is what he means by conscious. And subconscious, he means that aspect of us that is constantly alive, and our active subconscious, constantly alive and feeding the conscious mind, feeding impulses and memories and thoughts and so on to the conscious mind, and also The subconscious mind is what appears to us in dream sleep, when we're in dream sleep. So we often get messages from the subconscious mind in dream sleep. But that's what he means. Conscious is our waking awareness, and our subconscious, by that he means the active subconscious. Later on, you come to awareness of your latent subconscious also, after you've been practicing concentration for some time. That's a whole other experience, and probably will not be a part of this talk. So the aspirant realizes the need for control of the mind, both conscious and subconscious. By spiritual life, I mean the hunger in the heart to see, to know, to experience God. Now, we don't have to, those of us who are temperamentally, we don't like the word God because of the baggage it carries in the English language. We can use the word truth, or divine presence, or divine being, or living presence. But the Swami simply uses the word God. That hunger to know, to experience God. When we come to the understanding that there is no happiness in the finite, we understand that there is only misery if we follow our moods and impulses. Then we know that in God alone are peace and freedom. Now, notice the flat out statements the Swami is making from his illumined self. There is no happiness in the finite. We understand that there is only misery if we follow our moods and impulses. Now, ultimately, we find there is happiness in the finite, but only after we have discovered that the finite is a manifestation of the infinite. As long as we're trapped in the feelings of moods and impulses and restless desire, this is what is meant by finite. We understand that there is only misery if we follow our moods and impulses. Then we know that in God alone are peace and freedom. The fundamental truth of spiritual life and the purpose of life itself can be reached only when we are absorbed in God. Now, this word absorbed can be misunderstood. It doesn't mean, for most of us, that we are every moment in the awareness of the divine presence. It means that we have become that for some period of time, and we are increasingly drawn to it, like water drawn to a sponge, like magnets drawn to one another. So the purpose of life can be reached only when we are absorbed in God. So that absorption begins, and then having tasted it, we move more and more in that direction. Jesus said, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." The reason he said, "Be of good cheer," is that he has the ability, has, not had, has the ability to share that with us. Jesus said, "Be of good cheer. I have overcome the world." Each one of us has to overcome this world. How? How? It is a vast world, but it is actually in our own mind. And this is what we realize when we begin to practice spiritual disciplines, do our spiritual practices, that everything exists for us in our awareness. We share certain aspects. We want to, that's why we do this. As the divine being, we want this manyness and this sharing. But the fact is that all of it, including the sharing, is in our own mind. Jesus said, "Be of good cheer, I have overcome the world." Each one of us has to overcome this world. How? It is a vast world, but it is actually in our own mind. That is the point. If you analyze, you will find that whatever you see in this world is a mirror of your own mind, your mind's own reading, and nothing else. As in darkness we see a rope and mistake it for a snake, so is this whole creation, the creation of our mind. Now, because this is such a key point, I want to make sure that everyone is content that the Swami is telling you something true, that really and truly there is no world out there. There is vibration out there, and this action and experience suit translates that vibration by our knowledge of name and form, translates that vibration into what we see, feel, hear, experience in any way. And that's why if we really compared notes closely, we would see that your world and mine, and each one of us here, it's somewhat different. So there are shared aspects. So any comments or questions at all about this? Yes, please.
I really don't want to open up a can of night crawlers. So just put this off till later if you want. But when you're talking about mind, I understand exactly what the Swami's talking about. But as far as mind and it being, all that you just said, but what about people who have near-death experiences, who, when they are out of their body and observing things, it's not like they're this totally enlightened being, but they're definitely in a different place as far as their interpretation. Is that something that can be addressed or should be put off until
No, that's absolutely right. All of us, one of the reasons that near-death experiences are so interesting is to us, is there's something in us that recognizes that state of being. And so, yes, we can go beyond. And that is what happens in deep concentration and meditation. We begin to experience things very like near-death experiences. And the analogs are very clear. We may even experience some of the exact same things. I mean, this business of being outside your body, looking at your body, this business of seeing all around you that is all around your body, as something going on, but certainly not you. And then all of the other aspects of near-death experiences. But this is an aspect more of the subconscious mind and of the psychic aspect of the mind, which is addressed very much in Raja Yoga.
Would it be subtle mind?
The subtle body is definitely has those components, yes. And it's the subtle body that leaves the in a near-death experience. It's the subtle body that leaves the physical body and has these experiences, yes. And we can experience them in dream states, or one of the things that is found by people who practice meditation, concentration and meditation regularly, is they dream less at night, but they have more profound dream-like experiences, yoga nidra, the yoga sleep, during their periods of concentration and meditation. So yes, it is the subtle body that we're talking about, control of that subtle mind as well as the, so to speak, physical mind. I'm really glad you brought that up. That's very much to be addressed.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anything?
Brother Chakra, this is Fred.
Yes, Fred.
Hi, everybody.
Hello there.
Good morning. You know, this point as to whether anything's really real or not has been argued over the centuries by everybody, religious people, philosophers, that kind of thing. But so I'm actually hearing you say that you come down on the side that it's not real out there. That's what the Swami comes down on the side of, which is interesting. But it's obvious to me, and maybe, I don't know if everybody's the same, but there's a certain quality, I would call it a quality, right? If you're a happy person, you experience the world as a happy place. Whereas if you're a mean, negative person, grasping and selfish, the world's a hard place indeed.
Yes.
Just from a common sense perspective, but I know since I'm new to this way of life, my world has changed totally. And I don't know if it's any different out there or not, but it's certainly different in here. And I'm happy about that and appreciate what you're saying. I just want to share that. Thank you.
Well, there's a song called Love Shining Peace in which the lyrics appear. There's a wonder in the way we're always free to change the world by changing how we see. And that's just what you described, Fred. You've changed how you see. Therefore, the world has changed.
Right. And I didn't do it.
And is there a reality out there? Yes, there is a reality. It's just not what we think it is. We think it's real and solid and substantive. In fact, it's constantly changing at a subtle level, at a gross level. Sometimes it changes massively and violently. An earthquake, a volcanic explosion, a tornado. All this, isn't that real? Yes, that's real. But it isn't real in the sense that we think it is. We think its reality is, we just inherently believe in the permanence of things. This table, all right? But if we take a cosmic view of time, this table came into existence, 15 years ago, perhaps? 20 years ago. Another 50 years from now, it'll be an antique. Whether it'll be of any value as an antique is immaterial. But another 50 years after that, or 100 years after that, it probably won't exist. And that's true of everything that we can experience. Everything that the physicists will tell us that all that exists outside of ourselves is fields of vibration. And quantum physics tells us that takes form and name because of our participation. It has no form, it has no name. It simply exists as that. But it manifests as our mind. And as Cindy Sharda pointed out, it's not just the overt mind, the physical mind. There's a subtle mind. And there is a subtle subconscious as well, a subtle psychic realm. And slowly, by spiritual practice, we gain control of all of that, so that it doesn't control us. We gain control of it. If in the darkness we see a rope and mistake it for a snake, we act as if there's a snake there. We behave as if there's a snake. Oh my God, people will tell you that they've been bitten by that snake. I mean, there are stories. And they'll have a swelling and they'll have pain. There's no snake. Their mind manufactured the snake and the wound and the pain. If ever we want to, Cindy Sharda brought up near-death experiences. There's another more immediate, so to speak. It's called phantom limb pain. People who have had a limb amputated will continue to experience that limb as being there. And it's sometimes very painful, even though there is no limb that continues to exist except in their awareness. And they have to train themselves out of this phantom limb experience so that they're not seeing and feeling a limb that no longer exists. This is good. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara, oh, go ahead.
Yes, please.
When you mentioned there was conscious and subconscious mind, and then there's a latent subconscious mind, does that relate to the causal body, just like physical?
Oh, dear heart,
So-
let's not talk about the latent subconscious at this point.
Okay.
It's just a point of information. It's not part of this discussion at this point.
Okay. And when you mention about the illness, about the mind, the psychic mind, is that people who are psychosomatic and they imagine they're having the pain or the sickness, and it's all in the mind created?
Well,
Kind of like,
the psychic aspect of us is a different realm. It's explored thoroughly in the third chapter of Patanjali's Yoga Sutras. It is one that most people never gain any access to. And yes, it is part of our latent subconscious. And it bridges into our active subconscious. All of those, but we reach them only through very profound concentration. And it's, there really aren't separate divisions in this thing. There are the 5 koshas as defined, but that's just a way of talking about it. It's not a reality in physical or psychic terms. It's just a way of talking about how various aspects of ourselves appear to us, and we deal with them that
Brother Shankara,
way. Yes, dear?
um, as speaking for myself, as I, do my practice and learn to stay more in awareness and watch the thoughts, those times that I'm able to release, then that situation or the universe as it pertains to that situation or movement does change.
Oh, yes.
And the only thing is, I guess, more practice, because it is not always easy to release. And using like a baseball analogy, sometimes I get to first base, sometimes maybe second or third. But to hit a home run, I think I need God to be the pinch hitter.
Well, the thing to remember is that the divinity is latent within you, is potential within you. The home run hitter is potential within you. It's not somebody that you bring in from outside like you bring in a pinch hitter. It's there. And it manifests itself when you uncover it by learning to set aside. You said release. I like that. Release these other aspects. Someone else wanted to speak and gave someone else.
That was me, Somesh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, Shankara. So my mind, like the basic question that is coming is this earth, is this world I'm seeing, is is it as a changing world, is that even a reality? Or because I understand how I experience the world is up to me, like, or maybe different than other people, but the world exists. For example, if there's an earthquake, how we see the earthquake is different for everybody. Somebody may see disaster, somebody may see, like, if it's a businessman for something, he may see an opportunity. He may, like, everybody may see differently. But is earthquake a reality, or that's also not even a reality? Is the world that exists outside?
Do you experience it as a reality? Yes, it's
Yes.
a reality in that sense. But it's a relative reality. What do we mean by reality? If we mean by reality that which does not change, that which is infinite, eternal, and unchanging, if that's what we mean by reality, an earthquake is a relative reality. It is something that changes. And the whole universe changes in that moment. This is what Vivekananda says. The microcosm is reflected in the microcosm. The whole universe changes when you change. This is what is said. Because the universe doesn't exist within us, we exist within universe. But our awareness of universe seems to exist within us. And that's why we need to learn to control that which is aware of it. That's what the Swami is about to launch on here.
Got it. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Vijay, was there something else that you wanted to say? Oh, I guess that was Neera. Okay. It says Vijay.
This is Haima.
Yes, Haima.
I just wanted to make a comment of this profound statement you just read. It says, it is a vast world, but it actually is in our own mind. I think that's very powerful. Everything, if we let the mind control us, then it's going to cover our divine divinity within us. If we let the mind control with the negative things, it's definitely going to cover it up, all our divineness and our consciousness. So we have to work on the thought level. At the thought level, because the thoughts become words and words become actions and actions becomes our destiny. So this is how they go like a domino effect in the thoughts itself. When somebody exploits us, and every time we think of that person, some people like go in rage. That's the thought, that impression. They keep it in their mind level. And that is how I thought that's a very profound statement, what was mentioned there.
Thank you. Yes, indeed it is.
We create our own misery. Often we create our own happiness through our mind and our thoughts. That's all. That's all I wanted to make a comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Haima. Very well said. Anything else from anyone? Okay. The main principle. Well, let's just say this. Let's just repeat this. As in darkness, we see a rope and mistake it for a snake, so is this whole creation, the creation of our mind. Something is there, but because of our desire to have a world of name and form and manyness, we create out of what is there this universe, this world of name and form and manyness. The main principle of spiritual discipline is control of the thought waves of the mind. The very moment you control the thought, the Atman is revealed. Now, this is such a key point. The Atman is always there. That's contained in this statement. The Atman is always there. When you control the thought, who is controlling the thought? It is the Atman. It is the observer that is controlling the thought. It is Saguna Atman, Atman with attributes, that is controlling the thought. And so in your ability to control the thought and your awareness that the thought is controlled, the Atman is revealed. In the very moment you control the thought, the Atman is revealed. So that control is not superficial. It is not making the mind blank or unconscious. You know you can't make the mind blank unless you become unconscious. What you have to do is get to the bottom of it. In order to find the treasure at the bottom of the lake, you have to take away all the mud. Then the lake will be crystal clear. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the pure mind and Atman are identical. Now, by this, he means pure mind is both Saguna and Nirguna Atman. So the pure mind, Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the pure mind and Atman, both aspects of the Atman, are identical because Atman or God becomes reflected perfectly on a pure mind. Let me just read that again. Sri Ramakrishna used to say that the pure mind and the Atman are identical because Atman, or God, becomes reflected perfectly on a pure mind. When there is no disturbance in the mind, no vrittis in the chitta, no whirlpools that, what is a whirlpool? A whirlpool is something that drags you down from the surface and disturbs the perfect reflective surface of the lake. So the pure mind is a mind that is not disturbed by the, somebody has got themselves unmuted. We continue to hear their conversation. So the pure mind is a mind that is undisturbed by thought. Now, that doesn't mean there are no thoughts. It simply means that your awareness has sunk below the realm of thoughts. And you may have heard from here an analogy of sitting at the bottom of a swimming pool, swimming down to the bottom of the swimming pool, letting out all the air so that you're able to stay there for a few moments. And it's perfectly still. But you look up and you see there's all the other people playing in the pool. And distantly, you can hear the splashing and so on. Well, that's what happens when you practice concentration enough to sink below the level of the thoughts. The thoughts continue. They are much reduced. They're far, far fewer than they are. But they continue. The play of the gunas on your mental impressions. But because your breath has slowed due to your concentration, fewer thoughts appear. And so there's no disturbance. So the Atman, or God, is reflected perfectly on a pure mind. The crystal clear mind is the pure mind. For instance, you try to concentrate or meditate on or pray. You try to concentrate or meditate or pray, and you find your mind is distracted. These distractions are there because you have not yet gained control of your subconscious mind. The moment you try to calm your mind, the subconscious mind arises. Now, we don't recognize it as such at first, but this is what I meant by the active subconscious. The active subconscious is that part of the mind that is constantly feeding information and impulses to the waking awareness. And so the moment you try to calm your mind, you become aware of these things that are insisting on claiming your attention, your awareness. So, what is the subconscious mind? We think and act consciously, and our thoughts and actions are forgotten for the moment when we think another thought, or we engage in some action, then in some other action. But all these innumerable thoughts and actions are not lost. Each of them creates an impression on the mind. Those impressions remain under the surface. There are three areas of the mind: conscious, subconscious, and unconscious, or as I tend to use the term, latent subconscious, rather than unconscious, because unconscious makes us think that there's no consciousness. No, it's so I substitute the term latent subconscious. But the Swami's discussing it this way: three areas of the mind: conscious, waking awareness; subconscious, your active subconscious, which has many levels, it's very deep; and unconscious. Some thoughts and impressions go deep into the unconscious, where we cannot remember. We cannot remember them even if we try. And this is why people do this business of hypnotic regression and hypnosis and so on, trying to get at those things that are motivating their active subconscious and their waking awareness. The Swamis say, don't do it, don't do it. It's simply another distraction. But then there is a fourth consciousness, turiya, which transcends the conscious, subconscious, and unconscious states of waking, dreaming, and dreamless sleep. That transcending is possible when the mind has been freed from all impressions, subconscious and unconscious. Well, what does it mean freed? Does it mean they've gone away? No, as Swami said earlier, they have been released. Released. Our attachment to them, our desire to be involved or entangled with them has been released. That's what's meant. That transcending to this fourth state of consciousness is possible when the mind has been freed from all impressions, subconscious and unconscious, when we have gained control over the whole mind. And that is possible. So we've taken a few more steps down the path with the Swami here. Anything in the way of comments or questions about what's been said by the Swami, or for that matter, by me?
Brother Shankara.
Yes.
So what is the way to, like, the pure mind is when everything from subconscious or unconscious becomes into the consciousness. Is that correct?
Say it again, please.
So you said that, and I hope I got it right, that pure mind is when everything from subconscious or unconscious comes to the conscious mind.
No.
Okay.
The conscious mind has released all of that. you have all of these things are there, but the pure mind is a mind that is free from the disturbance of any of those past thoughts, feelings, mental impressions, free of the disturbance of them. That doesn't mean they've gone away. As long as you remain embodied, they're there. But the Swami just talked about how we transcend them. And that is when the waking awareness has released its attachment to all of those things that exist in the conscious, subconscious, and what the Swami calls unconscious realms. There's no more disturbance on the reflecting aspect of the mind. And so that is the pure mind. Thanks for wanting that clarification, Samesh. I'm sure that if it was stated clumsily before, that same misimpression was left with others.
Thank you. Thank you for clarifying.
Anyone else?
And then there is a fourth consciousness, Turiya, which transcends conscious, subconscious, and unconscious states of waking. And that shows full control over the mind. I seem to recall there's a disciple named Swami Turiyananda, and
Yeah.
didn't he have that strong control as well? Maybe that's how he got his name.
Well, Swami Vivekananda helped create those names, yes, in recognition of aspects. Turiyananda had perfect control of his awareness, so much so that he had a huge carbuncle or boil on his back. He had ignored it for so long that it became huge. And so finally, his sevak, his assistant Swami, said, Swami, we have to go to the doctor about this. This has become dangerous. You could get blood poisoning and die. So they went to the doctor, and the doctor said, oh yes, this must be removed immediately. And so let's do that. And he asked the Swami, Turiyananda, what anesthetic do you prefer? In those days, they had laudanum, opium, that sort of thing, ether. And the Swami said, oh no, I don't want any anesthetic. Just get your tools ready. And when you're ready, inform me. And then I'll tell you when to go ahead. So the surgeon, though baffled, did as he was instructed. And the Swami said, go ahead. And that great wound in the Swami's back, this great boil, carbuncle, was removed without anesthetic. Then, of course, to stop the bleeding, it had to be cauterized. In those days, they did this with a red-hot iron. The Swami sat, and this all has happened, and he didn't flinch. He didn't say anything. For us ordinary mortals, the pain would have been unimaginable. But his awareness was not there. His awareness was not on the body, and so the body didn't react as it ordinarily would have reacted if he were entangled or participating in it. Now, there's a little finale to this story. Of course, the wound was dressed, and some days later, his assistant Swami, his sevak, said, oh, it's time to change the dressing. But he didn't say anything to the Swami. He was just helping the Swami change clothes. And so he saw that it was time to change the dressing. And so he pulled off the dressing. And the Swami said, ouch! And his sevak said, Swami, this is amazing to me. I stood there and watched you be operated on, and without anesthetic, and didn't say a word. The body didn't react. Here, this much more minor pain of pulling off the dressing, and you say, ouch. And the Swami said, yes, but you didn't tell me you were going to do it so that I could prepare.
So I think the moral of the story is when we go to, if we do achieve Turiya, it's not permanent, but some people can go into that state at will, like the Swami did.
It can become permanent when it transitions into Nirvikalpa Samadhi, yes. If it's Savikalpa Samadhi, it's impermanent. It's still an experience within time, space, and causation. So who knows what the Swami was experiencing, what his mind was dwelling in and on at the time he was operated on.
Brother Shankar, that brings up a question to my mind.
Yes, Fred.
So the pure mind, this state that transcends the other states, that's qualitatively, that's the same state that you achieve when you quiet your mind totally for seconds at a time or whatever, right? Is that true, or is there a different qualitative state different than that?
As Sri Ramakrishna pointed out, these states of samadhi, of turiya is one form of samadhi. There are many levels. For most of us, what would happen is when our minds are calm and we're without thoughts, we would still be experiencing. We would be experiencing that thoughtless state or that level of turiya. It's called savikalpa samadhi. It's still an experience within time, space, and causation. And this is why I said we have no idea what the Swami Turiyananda was experiencing when he was able to prepare himself. It probably was not nirvikalpa, because it's very difficult to return to the bodily consciousness from that state. So it was some form of turiya, some form of savikalpa samadhi. He was absorbed in something that took his mind, his awareness, completely off the body. So when we achieve this state of no longer being aware of our thoughts and the fact that our body continues to be alive, just exactly what happens has a number of different levels, but they all fit within this concept or this definition of the fourth state of consciousness. Is that clear?
Yes, you're saying there are many levels.
Many levels.
To that state. Okay, thank you.
And we the first level that we experience when we practice concentration, and it slides into meditation, is we're not aware of it in the moment, but we stop breathing. It's called kumbhaka. We stop breathing and we lose awareness of our body. We lose awareness of the the so-called skin barrier. We feel expansive. We don't, it isn't that we're thinking about it. We're not thinking about it. It's just that that is the experience. We're no longer confined or contained to the body. Then, as this deepens, and this reality that exists within us becomes more and more the presence that is filling our awareness, it pushes everything else, every other consideration, possibility of thought. It all goes on. It's continuing to go on, but it's outside of our immediate awareness. And this is what Jesus spoke of when he said, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." But it's still an experience. It's still a seeing. But you see that divine presence. You experience it. And it's all in that moment that you experience. But then that fades away and all the rest comes back. But your awareness has now been transformed. You will never be the same again because you have seen that that is what is, and that somehow it's completely beyond expression. Somehow you are that. You are part of that. Thanks for bringing that up. Anything else from anyone?
Brother Shankara?
Yes, Swami.
So getting the awareness to sink below the level of the thoughts is what we are trying to achieve when we sit down for our meditation concentration through mantra japa or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose that's not quite possible when we are actually doing day-to-day activities. I mean, obviously that would be dangerous to do that while driving. But is there
But
like a
you can make
parallel?
japa. You can make japa while you're driving, and it changes the experience of driving. You no
Right.
longer are reactive in the way that you are
Right.
when you're in that more irritable possibility.
Right. So is that the same thing like when we are engaging in activities, a kind of way to sink below the thoughts is to do underlying japa the whole time, whatever we do.
This is what Chaitanya means when he says, "Chant the name of the Lord and his glories unceasingly." You know, just you see after you've practiced for some years, you'll see that the mantra is always going on in your mind if you practice mantra meditation. You'll find it's always there, like all the rest of the mental impressions that continue to be present. That too will be present, but it's more powerful. It has within it an inherent spiritual power. And so it will become actually a kind of a life ring, like you're in the ocean and you're beginning to tire and you need something to help hold you up so that you can swim your way back to shore, a life ring. You'll find that the mantra is a life ring. It's there, and you'll find that it comes forward in times of need.
Thank you.
There's great power in our spiritual practices. Otherwise, it couldn't overcome our continuous experience of the world, which is Yes,
we can do that japa anytime too, right? Like when we're getting ready, changing our clothes, or washing dishes, or pretty much
you,
anything, right?
you certainly
Anytime's a
can.
good time. That's good.
You certainly can. As a matter of fact, Swami Prabhavananda's Sevak, his assistant Swami, was a man named Krishnananda. And one time he was in the kitchen after a meal, and um, the, the monks were all washing the dishes and getting the kitchen tidied up. And they a mood had taken over in the room where there was this kind of grumbling going on, chatter and grumbling. And Krishnananda, who said very little, he was very taciturn and very quiet most of the time. Suddenly he stopped doing what he was doing, turned to them, which, he was the senior monk. So everyone knew to listen. And he just said this, "Something the matter with your mantra?" In other words, be quiet and chant your mantra and you'll stop this grumbling. Stop this complaining and grumbling. This
That's true. Even when I'm complaining within my mind, the mantra kind of eases that up a lot.
Oh, yes. There's a very real physics-related reason that's true. We are beings made of the vibration, these vibratory fields. And when we deliberately introduce this other vibration of the mantra, it changes the vibration in our mind-body system, our antakarana, as it's said in Sanskrit. Okay, it's a little afternoon. We can wait until next week to go on to the question, what is character? Any other thoughts or comments? We don't have to stop. I'm just saying we won't read on. If there are any other thoughts or comments or questions, you know how welcome they are.
Brother Shankar, this is Katrina.
Yes,
Just
Katrina.
just want to make sure, be clear on the vibrations and how they become, what I understand you're saying is that they become what we see and experience. And of course, all that's within us. So we do how we're being determines the vibration taking form into what we see. Is that what I'm understanding? Am I understanding that right?
It's a very interactive process. Yes, Katrina. We are experiencing, as a matter of fact, like everything else that exists physically,
Mhm.
we are 90% empty space, more than 90% empty space.
Mhm. Yes.
Which isn't really empty space, though. What it is it's these, as Don Lincoln, head of Fermilab, says, it is these quantum fields of vibration. Now, this incredible machine that is our action and experience suit has the ability to take those quantum fields and make of it this machine. So it's made of vibration.
Okay.
It generates vibration, and it constantly reacts to vibration. The vibrations as defined within this tradition, the predominant ones that we are experiencing that cause us to generate the reality that we experience are the three gunas. So the three gunas are vibration. They are interacting with the vibration of this pre-existing unit. The gunas created it too. But now it exists. And so the gunas vibration is, but then when we, in a conscious way, introduce a different vibration, a mantra or a prayer or any other form of spiritual contemplation and concentration, that immediately affects the vibratory state that you're in. And so, and as Brahmadas was pointing out, it has the potential to improve it,
Okay.
what you're experiencing.
Okay. So in that example of what you're experiencing in your body physically, in the physical body.
In the physical body, in the mind, which
Yes.
is both physical and subtle.
Okay. All right.
The
And
body
then-
is subtle also, but that's a whole other issue.
Okay. And then the same applies to anything, every other thing too. So in
Yes.
terms of people, if a person is experiencing wealth, financial wealth, then it's a result of this is the same process. It applies to everything.
Yes, yes, yes. Well, if we want to know how much vibration is a reality, just imagine yourself in a room and there's a bunch of people that you know in the room, and somebody new walks into the room, somebody that you don't know.
Okay.
Immediately, before they say a word, you form an impression of them.
Yes. Mhm. Right.
Why? Well, they're wearing their vibration. They're even wearing it by the suit of clothes that they're wearing, what they've
Right.
selected to wear, how they stand, how they move. All of this we sense. Because why? We only see by vibration. And they have created a vibratory reality for themselves, and we see it and we sense it at an even deeper level. If you want to know what I mean by that, read Swami Vivekananda's talk, The Powers of the Mind. How profoundly this vibration is being interchanged and between and among human beings, and how a person who literally knows how to control that vibration can make things appear. For example, Vivekananda was in a room, a bunch of other people. There was an adept there, a yogic adept. And he said, ask for whatever fruit you want. Ask for whatever fruit you want. And so each of them said what they wanted. And of course, Vivekananda, being who he was, asked for a fruit that was not only out of season, but was not grown anywhere near there. So the likelihood that the guy could have be performing some sort of magic as an illusion. No. The guy produced each of the fruits that was asked for, just like that, including the one that Vivekananda asked for. So, but this control of vibration at that level is a psychic power. It's not a spiritual power.
Oh.
But you know people that can come into the room and they somehow they say, oh, that person just takes command of the room. Well, the reason is that that's who they are as a vibration, as a system of vibrations. Thank you, Katrina. That was a very appropriate question about what is meant by this vibration and its control.
May I ask a follow-up question?
Of course, dear, always.
If since that is a psychological power and not a spiritual power, how, because as I have in mind about people who are now experiencing some challenges, financial challenges because of the pandemic.
Mhm.
And so how can the situation be resolved on a spiritual as opposed to a psychological level? Because my thoughts are that sometimes things can be done on a psychological level, but doesn't have a spiritual, what I would call a love base to it. And so then it might not be for the good of all. You understand what I'm asking?
Yes, and that's that question, Katrina, is a very particular question about a particular circumstance. So first, let me make a differentiation between psychological and psychic. They're not the same.
Okay.
A psychic power is, a lot of us have great psychological power. Very few of us, because of our lack of control of the mind. We have this psychological power because we've learned how to do it. It isn't, it's like learning anything else. Psychic power is a realm of the mind that most of us don't have access to because we've never been there. We get inklings of it, we get suggestions of it. Sometimes we have experiences that betray that it's there. Now, psychologically and spiritually, these two different things.
Okay.
Psychologically, this instance that you're talking about of people being in economic want because of the pandemic. What to do? It's too amorphous a question, Katrina, to answer in any specific sense. Should we pray for them? Absolutely. Should we support them if we can afford to give them some financial support? Absolutely. Should we introduce them to something that might be of use to them that they haven't thought of? If that's what they want, if that's what they ask us for.
Okay.
Other than that, there's very little I can say. But this business of prayer, it's a reality. So it will make a difference in their lives.
Okay. Thank you.
Mm-hmm. Anything else from anyone?
Yes, Brother Shankara.
Yes.
I just wanted to clarify one thing about the vibrations. Like you said, so every being is a vibration. So some vibrations, like we are interacting, some of them will synchronize together better than with others. So but we don't have any control over it. Neither do they. So
Well, actually, we do have control over it. This is why people pray together. This is why people, for that matter, play cards together. Because something happens in the interaction, particularly if they're friendly and not fiercely competitive in playing cards. Something fluid will happen, and there'll be a sense of companionship. But
yes, I see.
it's best to try to control your thoughts and your emotions and not try and control the situation.
Mhm. So we can only do control and then wherever it falls.
Well, there are people who make it their business to control others. And they have many different ways of doing it.
Mhm. That's when you said about playing cards, I can relate to that, because when we play bridge, especially very competitive, and depends on your partner, how you relate to your partner.
Yeah, and
A
you make
lot
it
of people
very,
would have a fight over, they go home, the spouses fight over.
oh yes,
It triggers a fight. But if you are, you have a certain understanding and you have on the same level, same wavelength,
yeah.
and whether you win or you make mistakes or, whatever, does not really affect the.
Well, we have many ways of relating to one another. One of them is being competitive, and it's almost always a bad way to spend your time. Anything else, dears? All right, we'll leave it at that. We'll pick it up next week as what is character. So we'll just leave with this sweet thought. A flower at your feet, dearly beloved Lord, for each one who comes to your open door. A flower at your feet for each one who stands by your open door and says, come to me, offering to break this world's chain that binds us down to ignorance, suffering, and death. A flower at your feet for each one who takes the path that you have struck through this, your jungle world. Om, Amen. Om Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. Peace, peace, peace. Jai Shri Guru Maharaj Ji Ki Jai. Durga, Durga, Durga. May you be safe. May you be healthy. May you be cheerful. May you have peace of mind. Go forward in the loving and protective embrace of the Divine Being. So, tomorrow being Mother's Day, the talk's title is A Mother's Love. And that's what we'll do from 11 to 12 or a little after. Tomorrow is talk about a mother's love. And then, of course, on Monday, we have our reading and discussion group about that wonderful book, Love Poems from God. See you again soon, beloved.
Thank you, Brother Shankar.
Bye-bye, dears.